Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with another PB&J card class. And in today's video, I will be creating two elegant cards featuring Penny Black's newest floral transparent set called Flower Collection. And here's a look at those two cards I will be creating. I am doing a sort of faux or almost no line watercolor technique that is very easy to do. And then combining that with just some very easy backgrounds featuring Penny Black's newest creative dies. So before we begin, I just wanted to mention that I will have a full supply list up on screen at the very end of the video. This will include the supplies for everything that I'm using to create this card, marker colors, inks, stamps, dies, product numbers, and names. And we will go ahead and start by doing our stamping. And before I start stamping, here is a look at the stamp set I'm featuring today. This is called Flower Collection. It's a gorgeous transparent set, perfect for any of your elegant floral cards. I am stamping in my stamp positioning tool, and I am stamping this using Memento Toffee Crunch ink. I'm stamping onto Bristol smooth cardstock. And I really love this for the technique that I'll be using today. And by stamping it in this lighter colored ink, it will give us that no line look without having to strain to see the image. Now I'm doing all of my coloring today with a set of 48 Arteza TwiMarkers. These are a water-based marker, and they have two tips to them. They have a small brush tip, and I'll give you a look at that. And then it also has this very small fine tip on the other end. And I really liked the strength of the tip of that brush tip, and then that having a really nice fine tip comes in very handy. So here's the first card we'll be making, and before we start I wanted to mention that the kind folks at Arteza have also given me a coupon code for 10% off if you're interested in trying these markers, and I'll put that coupon code and links down in the YouTube description box below. So to begin, I'm just going to put the color with the marker around the edges of this sort of bucket or vase that these flowers are in. I really like the country look to this image. And I'm putting that color down where I want it to be the darkest. So I'm just coloring this in. Now you can see where I am using the brush tip, but it is a pretty small and a very strong brush tip, so it's perfect for smaller images like this, for getting up in between those details like by the flowers and leaves. And then I'm going to take an Arteza water brush, and I'm just going to start in the open area and kind of work my way up into that darker area. And you can see where the marker color was colored directly onto the paper, that's going to stay darker. And I can pull that color out and blend it using the water in the water brush, and that area is going to be lighter. So you get instant shading, the instant look of watercolor, but it's very quick to do and very easy to put down those colors and control where you want it to be light and where you want it to be dark. Working on the smooth Bristol paper makes it very easy to blend these colors. You can see when the water hits that area where the marker has been colored, it instantly starts to blend and turn into paint, and you don't have any harsh lines. Now red naturally, when it's lightened with water, starts to get a pink look to it, but I didn't want this to look too pink, so I just colored with one of those a yellow marker onto an acrylic block just to use that as a palette. And in those lighter areas, I'm just painting on some of that yellow color, and that just keeps that from looking too pink. Now I'm ready to move on to the leaves. I am working with leaves that are not adjacent to each other, so leaving some spaces, and again putting that marker color where I want it to be the darkest, sort of up near the top or any area that's behind another leaf. Then I will get that water brush and sort of start on the white area near the edge and work my way up and let that water just naturally blend down. Kind of starting mostly like on the edge of where the white meets that color, so I can pick up some of the color and then pull it down, but leave the most of the dark color up near the top, and that's how you get that nice shading from light to dark. Now all of the exact colors and stamps are listed again at the on screen at the very end of the video. I've actually colored this image several different times for several different cards, but I had never, and I did the sort of bucket area in grays, and so I thought it'd be fun to add some of the majority of the color down onto that bucket. Now for this cluster of flowers, I started with a lighter color, coloring it towards the center, and then mostly just went over the entire thing with the water brush just to blend that out. I like to start light and then decide if I want to go darker later. So after I had colored that, I thought, I think I want some more contrast up in that area. So it was even still a little bit damp, and I just grabbed a little bit darker color and I'm adding it towards the center of some of the flowers. So with this painting, it does not need to be perfect. You don't need to get every single flower exactly the same. I think that adds to some of the charm. Now I'm just going over those center areas just to blend them out a little bit. And you can see what a difference it makes just by adding one more color onto those flowers. And I missed one there I wanted, so I just added that in real quick. So here I'm going to follow that same process up on this flower. Just adding my color where I want it to be the darkest, either towards the center or when it's behind another petal. And then blending that with the water. And then sort of letting those dry before I work too closely next to each other. And you can speed that up with a heat tool. I used my heat gun just to speed that up as I worked around the image. Now for this flower, I wanted it to sort of read as being a white flower, but in order to give it a finished look, I'm just grabbing a gray here and adding some shading in with that. And then I will go in now with the water and just blend that out. Now these I did work near each other because there wasn't very much marker color there to bleed or blend. So I did just work sort of around the image, not worrying too much about if two petals next to each other were getting wet. And I just continue that process for the rest of that flower. I'm adding in just a touch of yellow to the center, and I also felt like that tied it into that other flower up on the upper part of the image. And then here I'm using that same gray down on the handle, and I felt like that tied in the gray that was used on the shading for the flower, and using the fine tip of that marker to color. That was again really handy to have that really fine tip there to get some of those super small details. And I will blend that with some water. So I went ahead and just fussy cut that out, and after I was done, I felt like I wanted just a little bit more of a turquoise green look to these flowers. So I grabbed the sage green marker and I'm just coloring right over the top of the coloring I had already done. And then I'm just blending that, just loosely blending that with some water. That added just a little bit more sparkle and life to the image. And here's a look at that finished card. I layered it with some creative dyes and some self-adhesive pearls. And I'll give you a look at that creative dye and the finished card a little bit more if you stay tuned to the very end of the video. So here's the next card that we'll be making. For this card, I wanted to do a fairly soft and pastel look to the flowers. Again, these are from that Penny Black Transparent Set Flower Collection. And I'm using the TwiMarkers again. Same technique, putting my color down where I want it to be the darkest and then blending it with the water brush. And you can see what a gorgeous color this is. Again, all the exact colors are listed at the end of the video. And I'm even going to drop in just the smallest touch of yellow to mix with that coral, just to give it a touch of orange and a little bit more depth. I can put it in just while it was still wet, and then I'm drying that with my heat tool before I move on. So making sure that those sort of background background petals were dry before I did these ones that were more up in the foreground of the flower, or they were on top of the others. For those, I put the marker color more towards the center and then blended it out with the water. And then I just blended a touch of that there, of that yellow. I follow the same process for the rest of the flowers. And here I am working on the leaves. Now for the leaves, just for some extra variation, I'm using two shades of green. One is more of a mint green and the other more of a sage. And so without doing a lot of shading or a lot of different colors on each leaf, by doing two similar colors but a little bit different for the leaves, that is enough variation, I think, to give this a finished look without having to do a lot of shading on each individual leaf. It also keeps things nice and light and airy and fresh, which is what I was going for with this stamp. And then now grabbing that fine tip of the marker to color those stems. Again, very handy to have that super fine tip. Here I am adding in some yellow towards the center. Now that Memento ink that we stamped with, it will sort of start to lighten up and blend a little bit when water is added, which I think is nice for this no line look. There's enough there so that you see some detail, but it also, you don't have to color it all perfectly to give it a finished look. So here's a look at the finished card, just a peek at it there. Now to finish these cards, I stamped the sentiments from two of our new sentiment sets from Penny Black. The Destination Sentiments, I used the Trust the Magic of New Beginnings. And then from the Huggable set, I used To a Friend who has given me everything to be thankful for. And then I think what really finishes these cards are the die cuts. I used the leaf stitch frames and the stitch circles. And these dies are so awesome, especially if you want to just do some coloring and then have a simple card. This is that stitch circles, and actually it cuts the center and does the stitching along the outside of the cut line. And then here is that leaf stitched frames. Such a nice stitching look, unique but not too overpowering to take over the entire image. I hope you enjoyed today's video and are inspired to do some floral coloring yourself. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website and blog, and I will link to all of those for you down in the YouTube description box, with as well as links to those markers and the Penny Black stamps and dies featured in the video. And if you stay tuned, that supply list will be coming up on screen. Thanks for watching.